suggested revisions to the minutes, and hopefully everybody has help there. Um, and so just I beg your patience here. And then there are a couple things I failed to catch until a little later, so there are even some that are not in this list you have before. One on the very first page, obviously, is I think Commissioner Knight was there, so obviously it wasn't absent. Then on the bottom, under number 2, we consider the circumstance of the COVID-19 state of emergency. At the very bottom, it says no action taken, HI will continue to hold hybrid hearings. I suggest we make that hybrid in-person hearings. Otherwise, we don't understand that here. Then going back to my list, the discussion in staff update regarding what we hoped would be our district commissioner. Just revise that last line, because obviously District 3 isn't vacant. There's a whole lot of land in District 3. What we have is a vacancy, so the 3rd district still has a vacancy. I suggest we put there. And then these items were omitted any comment. I think it's really good to say that we didn't do something, just so it's clear that we didn't drop it. So that's why I suggest for both project discussion and the district reports, we add, there was no project discussion, there were no district reports. Then down when we get to Rockingham Park, obviously we want that to be Duncan moved. Then with the whole broadband middle mile project regarding the Cold Spring Canyon Bridge, what we have here is the text basically of the letter that we sent to Helena. But for the minutes, what we need is what happened in here. So we need the fact that, for instance, Mr. Leckie, representing Caltrans, spoke to us, and we need the fact that then we decided that we would write a letter. And I think we could simplify all the different things that were included in the letter. So this is what I've attempted to do. First, also I have the disclosure that I made that I stopped the Lucas Bridge. And then a description of Mr. Leckie speaking to us and giving an overview of what's happening. So that's that paragraph that basically says what the project is about. And then I don't think we need the first 3 bullets that if we include all that. So that I'm suggesting we omit the first 3 bullets and have what we have here instead. HX is concerned about the project and its impacts on this very important unique Santa Barbara County historic resource, etc. And I think the 4th, 5th, and 6th were all really important issues that we spoke about, and what we have here verbatim, I think, is pretty clear. So I just keep those. Then with the 7th, 8th, and 9th, these are all sort of very detailed aspects. So I just wanted to be clear that if it was important, it was touched on. And so I instead suggest we put in Commissioner Duncan felt that his inspection of the bridge suggested tapping the conduits between or on the girders is problematic. And then obviously the very last bullet, I think we should retain that first bit, which says that we're still in conceptual and we want to, and we know things will change, but we want to stay informed here as I write. And per Mr. Lackey's request, HLAC will submit a letter noting its concern. Chair Cotton will collaborate with Commissioner Duncan. So that's a little complex, but I think it's clear in terms of what I would suggest revisions be. Then with Rancho Fontaveros, I think we should retain the first bullet. Then what I tried to do here was more clearly state what our concerns were and what the issues were. So as the group of related to significant historic and cultural buildings essentially comprises a district that the historian is arguing about, exhibiting considerable integrity and warrants protection. That's what really was amazing, is that you had this whole grouping of them with such integrity. One commissioner felt that the 1947 garage might also warrant protection for its contribution to the group of related structures. But the most important thing is commissioners wish to confirm that the additions of the residence and ADU would not impact the historic structures. That's what they did tell. Commissioners agreed that unfortunately the residence no longer retained integrity because of that work that was done without our review, obviously. And then the very last bullet I thought was a good description of what we felt the family had in terms of a sense of stewardship, what we wanted to ensure of. But then on the additions, I suggested simply revising that first bullet, just so that you don't have that redundant such. You've got such a couple different places here. We're taking on the responsibility of handling aside with so much history would read in. Then with the third bullet, I didn't understand about art scheme domes. If somebody else knows what we were talking about with art scheme domes, I instead replaced the things that I knew we talked about. So pleased with the preservation of the important landscape elements and axes in the garden. If you remember, that was an important aspect, those different axes that the elements have been tied together with. And then revising the fifth bullet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down there, because this simply just doesn't make sense the way it's written here now. Appreciate how the new pool has miter corners that echo the, that's a mistake there. It should be an octagonal feature it replaces. So instead of hexagonal, I suggest we make that octagonal. And then on that, the seventh bullet, it's obviously Peter Rydell. And I just cleaned up the language there to address what I may have not stated clearly at the hearing. And then leaving that last bullet as it is. So, any questions on what I'm suggesting?
Any questions, Commissioner Duncan, on these?
Or maybe somebody else has other additions, of course.
Okay, any other commissioner on the minutes? Commissioner Nye?
Yes, thank you. I must abstain since I was not here. However, just looking at these minutes, there's references here and there to historians, but there's no mention of item on either of these projects. Number 11, item number 11, the Rancho Ontiveros, and number 12, the Yape additions. There's no mention of the historian or their report.
Well, obviously that isn't a mission, and you're correct. So we need to go back and make sure that we have the names of other people who were present and their positions.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No,
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
normally we have those in there.
Right, no, I think it's very important to put those in minutes for future reference.
In both cases, we had obviously the historians and then owners and architects, or
They were all here,
yeah,
so
there
they're easy
were
to plug in
multiple
those names.
representatives for both projects.
Okay, any other for the minutes?
If there aren't any other suggestions, I move that we adopt the minutes of October 10th, 2022 as amended.
Okay, a second. Commissioner Bleacher seconds. All in favor? Oh, we have to do a roll call on this. Okay, Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Bleacher, Commissioner Kaufman Gray, aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Commissioner Melton, aye. See, Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Wickoff,
Abstain.
And Commissioner Nunn.
Abstain, and the record needs to show that.
I know,
Mr. Whittosh
Which
is
is
here.
now here, yes. So we can put in the record that he arrived at the start of the minutes. And welcome, Mr. Whittosh. Commissioner. Okay. So let's move on to staff updates, item number 4.
Say that the motion passed.
It did pass us, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't hear if you voted, sorry.
Okay. So there was, what's 4 sentences? 3 sentences.
3 sentences. 5
Okay, let's move on to the staff update. Do we have any staff update today?
No, nothing's updated.
Okay. I guess maybe this would be the time to interject that a letter was sent to Daniel Alecki from the Department of Transportation of Caltrans concerning our last meeting. And it's in your packet, and I just want to thank Mr. Duncan, because he's the one that took all the notes for this letter. And he's actually the one that wrote the letter and gave it to me to go over and sign. So I want to thank Commissioner Duncan for doing that. I really appreciate it.
It was a nice letter.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, I like the background that's in there, it has a little background of the history of Caltrans. So thank you again for this. And so I just wanted to publicly mention that we did send that letter. And that's the only update I have. Okay, project discussions, item number 5, the County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will discuss funding potential historic projects. Don't think we have any unless there's any commission. Nope. And the HLAC budget, I know that we were trying to get the updated budget and.
We did get an updated budget for October.
Great, okay, thank you. I'm going to quickly go over it, the changes between the month before that we have, since we don't have the copies in front of us.
Absolutely.
So our total expenditures for the month of to 10/31/22 was $9,948.69. We have a remaining balance of $11,151. That's 47% expended.
And as usual, it's usually more in the support staff, which we know that always happens. But- Okay, and can you make sure after this meeting that all the commissioners receive a copy and also have it for the records?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any comments on the budget? Commissioner Nunn?
Commissioner Whittosh and I would like staff to explain the difference between P&D staff support and professional services. Those are the differences in the levels of county staff planners and
Mr. Chair, could I speak to that?
Commissioner Duncan, go ahead.
Professional services are if we were to get somebody to do a study, to store it. That's what those funds are for. So we have $6,000 basically for us to work on a project during the fiscal year.
And I believe that that's expenses for the person that we hired to work on the organizing our files and everything.
That's one thing we could do.
But didn't we, that came into this budget, that 3,000?
I see that was his budget.
That was his, that's what we paid him. Even though I think some of it was done last year, but it came into this, when we paid him, it was in
I
this.
should have thought of that, yeah, that explains that. So it's outside professionals that we need to use more often.
Thank you. Yeah, that's usually the item that we don't use. Any other comments on the budget, from commissioners?
Yes.
Yeah, Commissioner McTouch, go ahead.
Just a question. So we've expended 47% of our budget. And we are only in the fourth month of the year, of the calendar year, not the calendar, the budget year. So we have until July next year to spend another 53%. Is everybody okay with that? I mean, how do we control the amount of expenditures for P&D staff support? Keep it with.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll have this Commissioner Denver.
I'm glad to speak that if you look at that raw figure, it's distorted in terms of what the actual thing that happens, because we always use all of our P&D staff support and then go over. That's why we're at 97% already that we've used in this year. And they're working for the county anyway, so it doesn't change what happens to our budget. It's the remaining things that we should be looking at if they were a concern to us. Travel, well, not much. Many of us are traveling much right now, and so there aren't a lot of mileage things in there to take off that. Office expenses may vary, but you can see if you look at that percentage, that's totally appropriate for the time of year. It's all distorted by the P&D support stuff, which we don't have to worry about. The ones that we would be concerned about are the bottom three, if we were on the line with those.
Are those budgets interchangeable? For example, can a budgeted figure from professional services be moved to P&D staff support, and therefore, left hand washes the right?
I don't think we want to. I think Ms. Ryerson would tell us that they were not. And
Okay.
we wouldn't want to do that ourselves, because that would restrict what we could do in terms of projects. Fortunately, that's one area we don't have to back that.
And Commissioner McTouch, just so you know, last year we did have a surplus on the, I don't know my last, I can't read, professional services. We tried to get that carried over to this year and it was denied. But we did try to carry some of that to this year and it was denied. But, we'll keep trying if that happens again.
I think I understand the rhetoric, although not quite sure how we keep spending money with P&D staff support. And it's okay. I don't understand that.
That's been the way it is here. As long as I've been here, the department likes to do that, and we probably shouldn't be talking about it so much. Because they're kind of taking away from us if we keep bringing it.
And, I'm not sure how this works, but, we used to have a planner come to all our meetings. We do not have a planner now, so you would think it would be lower without having a planner, but for some reason, it just keeps going up high. So, yeah, go
Not
ahead.
a complaint, just a question.
Yes. Any other comments on the budget? We don't have to approve this, it's just for us to look at, and again, send us the copies of it so we'll have it for our records. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to district reports. Do we have any commissioners that have any reports for districts? Seeing none, we can move on to our standard agenda. Okay, we're going to move on to the Rocky Mountain Park nomination. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will consider the nomination of Rocky Mountain Park for designation as a Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark and adoption of a resolution. The property is shown as assessors parcel number 023-340-001 and 023-280-007, zone REC and located at 610 Mission Canyon Road in the Mission Canyon area. First supervisor district. So I, as chair, kind of brought this back, so I'll be doing the so-called presentation and go over what's in your packet and what we're working on today. So as 2 months ago was the last time we worked on the Rocky Park Historic Landmarks resolution. And I was directed by HLAC to create 2 different proposed resolutions. And so I created proposed resolution number 1, which you have in your packet, and also proposed resolution number 2. The reason why we have 2 resolutions, to just remind you, is that the County of Santa Barbara Public Works, Chris Smith, Deputy Director of Transportation, they now will support the Rocky Park proposed nomination if the wording in resolution number 1 in 2D5 is in there. So that's the difference, the main difference between the 2. The proposal I have today is after our commissioner questions, our public comments, and commissioner comments, we first vote on proposed resolution number 1. If there are any amendments, which I believe there will be. And if it does not pass, then we can vote on proposed resolution number 2 with amendments. And that would be without the line put in by Santa Barbara Public Works. So I have, here are some of the detailed changes in the proposed Rocky Look resolutions. So I hope you all have your resolutions handy, so I can go over the differences between 2 months ago and we looked at. One of the big changes is city-owned assessors parcel 023-240-002 has been taken out of both nominations. And that would be in the upper paragraph and also in the first paragraph of the nominations. Unfortunately, we were unable to get a memorandum of understanding between the city of Santa Barbara and the county. The city principal engineer of public works has been very cooperative with us. It's not like it's been antagonistic. We've worked really well with the city. And it's just a very complicated matter that involves water rights. And to get that memorandum of understanding would take a lot longer. And so we ended up, it has been taken out at this time. It can be put back in. That's what the commissioners want. This is a very small parcel, less than 1 acre, no physical individual historic features are in the parcel, but it does include native woodlands and sandstone boulders that contribute to the overall setting of the park. Due to the difficulty of getting the MOU, this parcel was taken out of the proposed nominations in both number 1 and number 2. So that's one of the first changes from the last resolutions that you looked at. And I believe we discussed this at the last meeting 2 months ago. Okay, number 2 is paragraph 4 and page 2. We have the word flow. And this was quite an interesting discussion before. And I added the S, but I'd like to go over the reason why I added the S, and we can discuss this. First of all, I just want to let you know my background is as a geologist from the University of Idaho. Even though I don't practice geology, but I do have that background as a geologist. Mission Canyon did have a dramatic debris flow incident that deposited the large sandstone boulders that you see in Rocky Neck Park today. But underneath of the surface is an alluvial fan that was created by multiple debris flows over the years. So to just give you an example of what I'm talking about, if you've ever been to eastern Washington State around Grand Coulee Dam, you see the channels gabalats of barren bedrock. It's just like the salt that you see there. What you see is a result of a large flood that happened 10 to 20,000 years ago when an ice dam in North Idaho broke and flooded all of eastern Washington. This is an example of a one-time flow. So that's a one-time flow. An example of alluvial fan, think of the Mojave Desert. If you're going to Palm Springs, I think the easiest way is we've probably all been to the tram, and there's that road that goes up to the base of the tram. That is an alluvial fan. And as you know, whenever they have summertime floods, it floods. And that is a flow. And they have to close the road and create it off. So over hundreds of thousands of years, that huge alluvial fan that you drive up to get to the tram is an alluvial fan. So this feature is a result of many flows with an S. So Mission Canyon is an example of both, a single flow or flows. So it's a matter of how you want to interpret Mission Canyon, and I'm going to leave it up to the commissioners today. So I've asked during comments, when we get to the comments part, decide if you'd like to have an S on flow or not have an S. And, you know, to me, there's both there, but it's up to if we want to just distinguish that the boulders that you see on the surface as being a flow, or if you'd like it all encompassing of what is in Mission Canyon. So that is something I would like to hear from the commissioners, what they think about that. So that is the S in flow. Okay, so let's move on to, okay, in proposed resolution number 1, 2D5 was added. This was submitted by County Public Works. So this is what I talked about earlier. 2D5, if you look in there, it says elements adjacent to or along Mission Canyon Road corridor that are impacted by maintenance, capital improvement, or safety projects. Now, as you know, B in here is the exceptions. So County Public Works supports having this included, and so I put that in on resolution number 1. And in resolution number 2, that wording is taken out. So that is the difference between the two resolutions with that word. Now we move on to Rocky Nook Park includes the city parcel APN 023240002. So following in resolution 1, this paragraph below at 2D6, this statement, since we had taken it out of the resolution, we have to explain that even though this is in the county park, it is city owned. So that's what this sentence is basically saying, that the city owns the parcel, but it's part of the county park. So we have no control over that parcel, even though it's in the park, because it is owned by the city. So that's why that is in there. And it's in both resolutions since we added the taking out that parcel. Okay, number 5 changes. This is something that is just bringing up now. In both copies, there is a page 4. So if you look at the back, you'll see the page 4 that has a signature page for the Community Services Deputy Parks Division. After some changes to the proposed resolution, the County Parks Department still does not support the proposed Rocky Nook resolution. So County Council says that we don't really need page 4, because they won't sign it, they don't support it. So County Council has said, stating, while we usually ask for consent of private property owners, it is not needed since the parcels are owned by the county. So this statement really isn't needed in any resolution. So I would, again, on comments today, since it's already in the packet, we need to amend to take that out of both, whatever we decide to put in these resolutions. We need to take that page 4 out. And then the last one, and this is about the word legal description. And we need to today, I'd like to remove the legal description from resolution adoption today in the first paragraph. County staff is working on getting the legal description, but before today's meeting, they've been unable to get the actual legal description. So in order for us to pass the resolution, we don't have it today, so we need to take that wording out. But County Council says that we can adopt the resolution today without having the legal description. This is a quote from County Council: when the item goes to the Board of Supervisors, the draft Board of Supervisors resolution will need to have the legal description attached so the Board of Supervisors resolution can be recorded. That resolution is required by statute to be recorded and is required to have a legal description. So in general, we can adopt this without the word legal description, but when it goes to Board of Supervisors, we need to have that. And they said they're working on it, so we should have it for the legal. Is that correct?
That's right.
That is correct, okay? So the idea is today we need to take it out to adopt it, but if it does pass, if any of these pass today, we'll need to have a legal description attached to our resolution when it goes to Board of Supervisors. So that is again something I need comment from everybody today to allow us to remove the legal description. It'll be like an amendment, if we decide to pass it. And so those are the changes that are in these two resolutions. And that really is my presentation, because we're just continuing on. And so today we're looking, like I said, we're looking at both resolutions. And, I guess we'll move on to, first, I forgot at the beginning to ask, does anyone have to recuse themselves from this? It's the very first thing I should have asked before we started. And I don't think anybody has. We've been talking about this for a long time. So I just want to make sure it's on the record that no one has to recuse themselves. So I guess we move on to questions from commissioners.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a little point of clarification for our discussion. Just to be clear, because we've actually added this reference to the city's parcel, both resolutions now have number 5 added to them. So if you want to discuss number 5 in any way, you should be clear. The number 5 clause that was recommended by Public Works, or are you talking about the number 5 that refers to the assessor's parcel?
Okay, yeah, well, the numbers change per resolution. So, resolution number 5 is the part that Public Works is the 2D5. Now, the 2D5 in resolution number 2 has to do with, like we said, the possession parcel. So when we discuss it, we need to just
to be
clarify
clear.
resolution 1 or resolution 2. So we know for sure what we're talking about.
And then just to be clear, it's suggested that we remove and legal description from both.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead, Commissioner
I think you've ticked off maybe 4 or 5 things that you would like us to each to comment on.
Knapp. In addition to whatever you want to comment on too, these are just,
Right,
because you might want to change this resolution completely.
so are you do you have a list in front of you to
Well, yeah.
prompt us so we don't?
Well, I was thinking like during
Can you give
comments,
us
I mean,
the
after
summarized
questions, when you go to comments, if you could
Yeah.
kind of list your preference on these, and that would be the removing or keeping the S in the word flow. That's one. Removing-
Can you just track those yourself?
Yeah, I'll do a
So
little
we
track
can-
and see.
Now,
And when we
let's,
get
if you can
to,
remember.
yeah, and then it would be the removing the page 4 is the second one. And then the third movement is the removing of the legal description that's in, those are the 3 I think we need to do amendments if we decide to pass one.
Question. So what about this 2D5 in the first resolution that's been eliminated in the second resolution? Do you want to comment on that
Well-
2D5?
It depends if you don't like that being added to the resolution, then basically it's saying that you support the second resolution because it's been removed. So the idea I said earlier is we vote on the first one. If you don't like that wording in the resolution, you vote no. If you want to take it out, then you can vote yes on the second resolution. If you don't like Rockingham Park as a historic landmark, you vote no on both. Does that make
I
sense?
understand.
Okay.
So resolution 2 removes the capital improvements in Mission Canyon Road
Right, that wording that was given to us.
exemption, it removes it from the exemption.
Right, that's correct. That, yeah, basically, because the other things we would either remove or keep, right, at the same time. Okay. I know it's very confusing, but, okay.
Well, that's why we need you to, I don't know, ask each one of us, number 1, number 2.
Okay.
Little yay or nay.
Well, maybe
Otherwise,
at
it's
the
so-
very end, when I guess I do the final comments, then I can physically ask each commissioner to say what you feel on this. Because we'll have to do an amendment to whatever one we decide to approve of those items. And if it doesn't pass, then we have to keep it. everyone says we need to keep legal description in there, then we'll have to keep it in, and I don't know, the county council and staff is gonna have to figure out how to get that word even right away.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I suspect the only thing where we may have any differences of opinion is probably going to be whether we include the clause requested by Public Works. I think all the others are going to be no-brainers if we want to get a resolution passed today.
right.
So why don't we just in our discussions, first talk about all those other things, and then we'll go to the tougher thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, we'll need to hear from public comment first.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Mr. Chair, one more thing.
okay.
Did somebody else want to speak?
Well, county council had their hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to, if you could ask for any ex parte disclosures, any discussions that.
Oh, that's another thing I did not, yes, I have this list here, and I keep forgetting. So was there any ex parte disclosures, any? Okay, just on the record.
Ex parte. I have received emails from Fred Sweeney and copies of emails from Tom Jacobs, architects who are advocates for this project, Safe Passage project.
Mhm.
Does that mean I've had ex parte communication? I've not responded to those emails. I've not had open conversation. But because I know that personally, they want to get it here.
Right. County council would like.
That's a good disclosure to make.
Okay.
What's that?
That's a good disclosure to make. That's-
Yeah, it is, yeah, because,
Okay.
anybody else?
Does that preclude me from making comments?
No, we just know that you have been receiving communication,
Yeah.
receiving.
Yeah.
All right, I have a quick
Yeah, go ahead,
question,
Commissioner.
and I don't want to keep going on this. I assume we're including this revised map, which was facilitated by Mr. Martin.
Oh, yeah, I should have mentioned everything. Yeah, but the revised map, the two aerial maps, which were not in the packet,
That was my next question.
yeah, those are going to be included.
Now,
When it goes to the board, if it goes to the board of supervisor,
Yeah.
they will receive the revised schematic, the two aerial,
the two-
those will be included. Of course, the original nomination form with the history of Rockland Park.
And staff, meaning Jonathan, you have the revised
Yes.
Yeah,
ones.
that is the
Labeled.
revised one we have today, because the old one had 2015 and the new one is 2018. Yeah, that's the new one, 2000.
Well, that's the new two, because one is enlargement of the other.
Right, there's
It's
two.
very confusing.
Yeah, there's
Two
two
maps,
maps.
slightly different titles. And I somehow I managed to lose my hard copy of the second.
So
So
it should be,
since we went to all trouble making this, it'd be nice to include both.
yeah, it should be on your desk there. You put them on in front of.
Are there any extra copies of that?
I think there is some lines where.
Here, you can have these two, because I have my own, I brought.
So this is, Howard wants to say. Oh, excellent.
And then here's.
Yeah, excellent.
But yeah, I should have mentioned, those were all, will be in the packet. If this gets approved today, it goes to the board of supervisors. So I can stand over.
Just to clarify, I was thinking that the site map would actually be attached as exhibit A to the resolution, and then the others would be just part of the packet that goes to the board. Is
Yeah, because
that-
we mentioned the site map is referred to in the resolution. So yes, that
Right,
that should
okay.
be attached to the actual resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine with me, it's just part of the packet, just for information sake. I noticed that one of these has some color overlays near the top. Maybe it's something to do with copy quality.
It might have come out from the copy. Is it a strip on the top of the edge?
Pardon me?
Is it a strip at the top?
Yeah.
That's from the copier.
Okay, so that would be, all right. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, well, let's move on to public comment.
Francesca Galt.
Needs to be turned around.
Oh.
I think that's because like that, because the tape is.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Fran Galt. We all know by now that Rocky Oak Park is qualified for landmark status. I think the second resolution is excellent. It's time to recognize the park for its gifts to the public and finally connect it to all the surrounding historic landmarks. I don't know why the park department doesn't want this honor for the park. We've never had, at least I don't think I ever heard an explanation for that. Especially since you've written such a clear resolution. I appreciate all the valuable work you're doing for the community, and I thank you. You've heard enough from me over the years.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is
Paulina Khan.
Paulina Khan, and followed by.
Those are the only two.
Joey
speakers that I
Schuster.
received.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Paulina Khan, and I've been working on this along with Fran Galt and many other people for 6 years now. November is Native American Heritage Month. And Rocky Nook Park is a place name for them. It was called, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce it, Achtayukash, which means place of the wild cherry. And these wild cherry trees are still all over Rocky Nook Park, particularly on the, I don't know how to say it, west side, north side. And the town of Hanayan was also near Rocky Nook Park in Mission Canyon. That means Rocky Place, and that was the name that they gave to Mission Creek. A descendant whose father was an elder at the San Ynez tribe writes with her husband, tiny slices of land in the urbanized greater Santa Barbara area that retain ecology and spirit of the pre-missionized Chumash need to be protected at all costs. And then you have a letter from Gino Altamirano, who's chair of the Coastal Band. He writes, the importance of Rocky Nook Park not yet to the Chumash is not just for the Chumash people, but to all, is evident in the storied preservation, a small piece of land held closely for many years within the hearts of many peoples, with a foresight to preserve the energy of this very special place. And Kellum DeForest, you all know from years and years, the late Kellum DeForest, this is long overdue, he writes in a letter to you. Mary Ellen Hoffman, who lives in Mission Canyon, contains all of Santa Barbara history without degradation of the environment. Judith Iskanian, who has been very prominent in Santa Barbara County politics and lives in Montecito. This is part of ground zero of Santa Barbara history. Bonnie Freeman, second District Parks Commissioner, who was there when Lansing Duncan gave his presentation, writes, Rocky Nook Park has as much authentic history and landscape. It's really a valuable draw, so near the other nearby history buildings, and needs to be maintained and protected under historic landmark status. And I am very supportive of resolution number 2. I hope that's the one that passes, unless you can somehow, no, that's it, period. Thank you very much.
Do you have any comments from online? Other comments?
I have no attendees in the public comment for this meeting.
Okay, well, that ends the public comment. We'll move on to commissioner comments. And who wants to start on this? It's been a long process, so.
Comments or questions?
Well, we did questions already,
Okay.
so we're into the final comments. And as I outlined, we're doing between the two resolutions. So, but I went to the original comments and then what I asked you to comment on, and I can remind you if you need to be reminded on your opinion on certain things. And then we'll go to a vote after that. And like I said, we'll start with comments from the commissioners. And who would like to start on this for Rocky Park as a historic land?
I'd be happy to start because I have very brief comments.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Retash.
So, long story short, I'm in favor of resolution 2. The reason is that in all due respect to the debris flows 20,000 years ago and the prehistoric, pre-Spanish occupancy of the area by Chumash, the one little thorn in my crop is the stone curb in the right of way. So I'm not sure, this is a common question, whether we actually have jurisdiction over that stone curb or whether that actually is going to sit on the city's property. If it is in the county's property, and I see nods that it is, I am in favor of preserving that stone curb and in fact restoring it. And the reason is that I feel that the improvements to the bridge and to the bikeways and the equestrians and pedestrians and so forth, that's all fine. I mean, we have no control over what I think happens to the bridge. But we do have control over that stone curb. And that stone curb is a dark obstacle to the widening of the road and the smoothing of the curve and so forth, so that cars can travel faster. And I am opposed to faster traveling traffic. I think this is a place where people need to slow down as they enter a historic area. I drove through it this morning with low sun angles, and it was absolutely magnificent. It is truly a gateway to a place that is frozen in time. So I'm not unclear about wanting to keep the stone curb in as part of the designation. Go ahead and disagree. That's I'm very, very clear on this. Thank you. And by the way, I'm okay with flows. I'm okay with removing all these references and all the administrative housekeeping that needs to take place with the resolution.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Retash. Okay, Commissioner Duncan, would like to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to go back to Frank Gall and all those members of us who've spoken so strongly that they want to see Rocky Oaks landmark. And obviously, it's a very important place that has a special sense of identity and meaning in the hearts of our residents. I would point out that, people may think of landmarks as just being buildings. But if you look at some of the different things, in fact, that we have made places of historic merit or landmarks, they include bridges, libraries, cemeteries, botanic gardens, dams, wineries, churches, hotels, windmills, packing houses, restaurants, hotels, clubs, stores, all these different structures and places that are important for us. I think in actuality, it should be no problem for Santa Barbara County to be able to protect Rocky Neck Park. We've served as pretty good stewards for a lot of other man-made structures, and supposedly we think our history is special and we would want to protect it. We go to great lengths to sell it to other people who come here to look at it. So I really want to see Rocky Neck Landmark. And I worked hard on it in that I worked on the original subcommittee, did a lot of site plan analysis, which is what I did professionally when I was landscape design. So it's like I'm trained in this, and I did the mapping that allowed us to do this because I wasn't using Google Earth. I was using myself and tape measure, etc. And then my son actually made it into a digital document for us. And then I wrote the first draft resolution. So you can believe I'm committed to making sure that Rocky Neck gets landmarked. However, and I do think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, i.e. the Parks Department ought to be able to run this as a park. And the resolution very specifically speaks to it continuing as a park and being used for recreational use, and recognizes that there are different factors that have to be balanced. So we ought to be able to do that. The only problem we have is just administrative issue thing. There's a little turf battle thing where people feel responsible for different things and have a hard time balancing it. Supposedly the Board of Supervisors will be the ultimate balancer. But I want to make sure that it is easy for the Board of Supervisors to landmark this property. And that's why I think we should include in Resolution 2, Resolution 1, and we should include the 5 category that Public Works has asked for. The reason why is the protection of Rocky Neck Park has become entangled with the proposed improvements to the road. We should stay away from that. We don't plan roads up here. We don't tell people if a road is safe or a road is not safe. Okay, that's not our job. So even though I myself like the way Mission Canyon Road is now, I grew up in Mission Canyon. I lived on Todos Santos Lane. I really appreciate, how it is, but I'm not going to attempt to totally lock in place every single thing there because I needed to be able to serve multiple functions. A road does go through this. There is a road in front of Rocky Neck Park. There's a bridge there too. There's all kinds of complicating factors. If we want to just focus on what we do, we should just include the Public Works thing when it goes to the Board of Supervisors. That's not going to be an issue. And what we're trying to do is, on balance, protect as many aspects of Rocky Neck as we can. And I think we can do that best by just getting it landmarked. Then ultimately, Public Works is going to have to defend anything they propose. And let me tell you, there will be a battle before Board of Supervisors if members of the public do not like what Public Works proposes. So I think if truly we want to make it clear that we're flexible and we want to work with these other agencies, we should include their calls. I do think, and that's why, even though, normally I wouldn't have started out with that, look how long it's taken us to get this far. Okay, because it got entangled with the road. And so if we want to get past that, this is one way to get past it. So the other things I think are no brainers. I'm fine with making historic debris flows thorough. In fact, when I went back to the nomination, I found, yes, that's actually the way Frank Galt had written it. I'm fine with removing the city parcel for now, because once again, we would get entangled with the cities and county discussions if we kept this city parcel totally covered by the landmarking. And I have no problem with that too, because it's still part of the park and it will remain the way it is. Because they're using it and they're committed in another agreement. So I'm fine with that. And fine with taking out legal description, if that can get our resolution passed now. Obviously, that's easy enough to complete the necessary thing that needs to be done there. And since, for the most part, this is Santa Barbara County property, we ought to be able to get the legal description for them. And everybody has known what the area has been from the very beginning that the park is. So that hasn't been an issue for us. I'm fine with dropping page 4, because in fact, we're not required to do this. You know, and we don't need to call attention to the fact that some people are still arguing over who can do what for our county. We're just going to point out that we do what we do, and this is the best job we can do after very careful consideration. It's not like we haven't considered this carefully. We've spent a lot of time, and so is the public way. So that's my position, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Duncan. Who would like to go next? Commissioner Duncan?
Sure. All right, as far as the debris flow versus flows, easily done by putting S in parentheses. Want to refer to the big boulder thing with the flow, and many flows and FLO, open parentheses, S, close parentheses, so. Anyway, okay, removing the city parcel, yeah, that's fine, page 4, yeah, okay, as far as resolution 1 and 2, the number 5 in resolution 1, if that empowers somebody to say, okay, we're gonna move that historic curbing, which is basically why we're talking about this resolution. Rockingham Park, as far as I know, has never been in danger of being demolished. We're only talking about it because of that darn curb, and that somebody wanted to move it to do something with the streets. That's what we're trying to save here. And so really, I cannot support it, resolution 1 because of that. The empowerment that gives somebody say, hey, okay, you can have your landmark stuff, and I understand what Lansing was saying about, hey, let's save it, let's be proactive and put this on the county register as a landmark. However, what we're really trying to save is that curbing in a place of where it's been historically. So that's my thing about that. So I would support resolution number 2. As far as having a legal description, if we end up approving resolution number 2 without that number 5 clause in resolution 1, the legal description. Who would be drafting the legal? If it's Ann, I'm fine. You know, because she understands what we're doing here. And but if it was just somebody else who doesn't understand what we were doing with the resolution, somebody could take out where the curbing is of that legal description for whatever purposes, or maybe just not understand what we're doing. Take that out of legal description. We want to know what's in that legal description, I would think, before we either adopt a resolution or have somebody trusted after the fact of adopting a resolution to make the description what we intend it to be. Does that make sense?
Normally, I don't like to ask, but I think that we could ask county council right now, clarify the legal description and what we're actually waiting for.
I think it will have to be drafted by the surveyor along with our real property department. It's not something county council drafts.
Okay, yeah, okay, then if that surveyor in the legal description makes the boundaries that do not include that curbing, that's the major question in this, then I am not for passing this resolution yet without that legal description, with including the curbing in that legal description of the property. Because if we leave it out, then we're at the mercy of whoever gives that legal description.
Legal description is legal description is a legal description. It is, meets and bounds. It goes from this point to that point. So it's really going to be what's in the county and what isn't. And the county line is there, but what it's factoring in might be where some of the other properties go in, because a lot of properties go to the middle of the road, but Walking Nook probably likewise does, but a legal description is just a technical, it's not gonna be, a heavy nuance that, that will,
Well,
it is what
when you leave it to any random human being, I think a legal description can be altered to whoever wants to define it. And if they leave out the curbing in a property to our resolution, and we want that, say we want that curbing in their resolution, then there's gonna be a problem. We have to make sure, if we pass resolution 2, I'm saying we have to make sure the legal description has that curbing in it.
Mr. Chair, we looked at this pretty carefully when we were looking at the original map that we prepared. And there was a fair amount of discussion about what areas were and were not included in the park and what basically where the county line there is as compared to the city. And one of the reasons why it was being looked at so closely was because of the road improvements that were conceivably envisioned. So we're pretty sure it's just within what's owned by the county. But you can see here or on the other plan, it's right there, right on the line. So, you can argue about that, about whether it is or isn't, but maybe you just want to make a different landmark.
No,
Stone curving.
No, I'm not referring to what's in the county, what's in the city. I'm referring to someone's individual interpretation of what should be in the landmark, in the resolution, whether it's in the county or not. And if it says it's in the county and that individual who writes up the legal description leaves it out, then we're at that mercy. We don't want that.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I had something. I think it's a pretty sure thing that curbing is in the county, because the park goes right up to the road, and the road's in the county. That the city property is across the road. But I think that the other question is, whatever we decide here is what the legal description will follow. And we could, if we have the technical ability to assess the legal description, which I doubt we do, we'll have to rely on county staff to follow wherever we want to move the boundary, no? Okay. What are you commenting?
Well, I agree. That's not our business. We would only be talking about Rocky Nook Park. The nomination is only for Rocky Nook Park. So whatever is in the park is what we conceivably include. Whatever is not in the park, we're going to exclude. We're also going to exclude the city because of this administrative tangle thing. Also, I would say it's pretty clearly in the county, otherwise Public Works wouldn't be arguing about it. So I don't think we should get hung up on the legal description at this point. I think if we're talking about Rocky Neck Park and the legal description is only a complexity of what is required for specific nominations and designations. It appears in our bylaws. So that's why we're going to be obligated at the point that the Board of Supervisors actually considers it to have a legal description.
Well, I guess I don't understand what you're saying, because if we do not include the curbing, then that would move the boundary to the east. So,
And then we're going to move the curve.
I want to say something on number 3, at the very beginning, on page 1 of both resolutions. The final word said, and a rural road system, and I think the curve might be included in that. I mean, we're including it in our description, so.
okay. Well, just one last thing to Mr. Duncan. I think I hear what you're saying in that the boundary is irrelevant boundary issue is irrelevant if we are not including the curve as a historic element. It could be inside the park. And it is, I guess. I don't know. It is inside the county, whether it's inside the park, who could say? But I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you with that approach.
Okay, well, when you get to specifics, yeah, we're talking about specifics of the park. We say we pass resolution 2, and we want to save that curbing from being moved, removed, demolished, whatever. And then we pass it. Okay, great. We rely on somebody else outside the commission to do this legal definition after the fact. And that legal definition to leave out the parcel of the stone curbing. How hard is that to imagine? And then someone will be empowered to say, okay, well, that's out of the legal description, so let's move the curbing if we want to. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter if it's in the city or county. We're already assuming it's in a county. It's the legal definition that something after the fact of us approving this resolution, that they're gonna leave out that curbing. We should have that legal definition in front of us that includes the curbing, so we know what we're voting on includes it.
You have the Florida map with all the numbers on it.
Okay, Commissioner Bleacher has come.
I'm not sure if this will resolve anything or open a bigger can of worms, but I'm wondering if it's possible on that number 5, that D5, to read elements adjacent to or along Mission Canyon Road corridor that are affected by maintenance, capital improvements, or safety projects, with the exception of, we better specify, with the exception of the historic sandstone curbing, or with the exception of historic elements of the rural road system.
There's a deed restriction that this is for park use only. Remember that.
Public comment,
Yeah,
not appropriate this time.
yeah, we need to, it's only commissioners are discussing right now. So we had talked about it, we changed, the reason why we have these 2 separate ones is we had, the subcommittee had talked about altering what the Public Works wanted, the wording. And we realized that if we change that wording at all, we would lose their support. And the idea is, number 1, they support it this way. If we don't like that wording, then we take it out and support resolution number 2. If we try to change that, they will not support it, and we'll lose that support. Because the idea is The reason why is we have these two resolutions, is one is we know we get county public works support, the other one, we know we will not get their public support, but we might like the resolution better and, and bigger chances.
Thing is, if we pass number one and get their support, that defeats the purpose of doing this, all because of that curbing.
Okay, Commissioner Latash?
Well, I just have a very simple question. My understanding is that the curb is inside the county.
Correct.
The question is the park. Does the park have different boundaries than the parcel?
Mr. Chair, as far as I understand, it's the assessor's parcel, and that's why we're listing them the way they are. And I suspect if you go back and look at the memorandum of understanding, the city is done with the county, this is the assessor's parcel. They have to have a clear way to describe the park, and I don't see any reason why they would omit something. You can look and see it. They've included where the city pumping station is. There's all kinds of other things that are in that, but they basically stuck to the parcel.
In your mind, is there a concern that some surveyor will change the alignment of the county?
Not at all, because Rockingham Park is already been defined as far as the assessor's parcel. As far as, I think that's, yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, the park is those three parcels. That is the county park, is those three parcels.
I don't think that a survey can possibly reroute the parcel or change the parcel or the county's jurisdiction and say, carve out the curb.
Okay, let's move on, as we're going off. We know where Commissioner Malcolm stands on this, and do you have any more comments on this? I mean, we know where you stand on this.
Okay, but it's not about changing the boundaries, whatever's been defined, it's about somebody leaving out, say for example, the parcel that the curbing is in, or they do the legal description for the board of supervisors to vote on. They say, okay, well, here's my interpretation of the legal boundaries, it leaves out the curbing to make public works happy, because some political, whatever BS is going on behind the scenes, and they say, okay, we'll just say, he says in 3 parcels, they leave out that 1 parcel and vote on, okay, you can vote on those 2 parcels, make that the landmark. That's what I'm kind of skeptical / cynical about, somebody else or somebody doing legal description after we vote on the resolution.
Well, I appreciate your comment on that. So we have 3 commissioners that have did their comments so far. Commissioner Nye, are you ready to do your?
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Nye.
Well, I'm impressed with the very deep thinking and suggestions and the commitment of my colleagues. And it's caused me to do a lot of soul searching and thinking about it. I will note that regarding the curbing and the sandstone curbing, basically an old early sidewalk, that the historic stone curbing is listed under 2B as a resource that is significant. So that is in the resolution. I'm persuaded that any attempt to change, to impact that curbing is going to raise quite an uproar in the community and on this commission. So I'm ready to support resolution 1 in order to get this our landmark. And that's just something I think is required if we're going to have any success at all. Thank you.
Would you like to comment on the ebbs and flows and?
I approve all of your suggested
Okay,
additions and revisions, including the S, yes.
okay, thank you. Okay, next, Commissioner Snow.
Well, I have been on this subcommittee after Mr. Duncan. I was on number 2 and I'm on the current one. To me, it's really important that we get this landmark. Rocky Nook Park is such a resource. And yes, I prefer to, but I am willing to go along with 1 because I think there, and I think that's what you were saying, Mr. Duncan. I thought you said 2, but then you said 1 because this isn't just a curb issue. This has got the aqueduct in there, which is not on the map, which is one of the things that we don't put on the map, so there's no destruction of a priceless historic resource. There are so many things, even beyond the curb, that we need to memorialize and get it through any way we can. And I believe that our community will just come forth to protect the curb if they do. And there are ways. I mean, yes, I would prefer resolution 2, but I do believe that we have 2 other things, you know, the old roads in section 3, and then we have the 2B that would allow us to protect the curb. And as changes may be proposed, which are beyond our purview, we can still be there. And there are ways to protect that curb, that sandstone curb, if there are changes, just like the Presidio has lines across Santa Barbara Street to show where the original Presidio was. We can, you know, we can be the tail, you know, the tail that's wagging the dog to make sure that this is protected in the future. But I do think that we want to get this through and get Rocky Nook Park landmark.
Would you like to comment on?
Oh, all the other changes are fine. Flows, the removal of the pig, there were 4 of them. The legal description is just meets and bounds, and it won't be, a surveyor will not be able to, if you have a parcel number. I think the parcel numbers will be sufficient because I don't see, I mean, when people survey, they have points that they're looking at and go off from, and it's mathematical in so many ways. And I believe all of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Snow. Who would like to go next? Commissioner Knight.
I'm kind of torn as a new guy here. Hearing commissioners that I respect on both sides of 1 or 2. Do we want to be very bold and go with number 2? Maybe too bold in any way. As I understand it, we're going to vote on 1. Is that correct?
1 first. If it doesn't pass, then we'll vote on 2.
So I'm still mulling it over. I do like the as in parentheses. I think that's a good way to deal with that, and I'm good with the other changes. So those are my comments.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Commissioner Bleacher, are you ready?
No, but because I am very torn with this, I mean, my heart of hearts, I don't want to have anything in there making an exception for road improvements. That being said, and deferring to the expertise of my fellow commissioners who really understand the workings of how of the administrative aspects of getting a resolution passed. I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and not have a resolution, not have a nomination, and not have historic landmark designation for Rockingham Park because of this one very small element that we all agree is so worthy of protection. But I also see that, first of all, the fact that every mention of this historic stone curving gets us all in uproar, I think is indicative of the fact that if this were protected with that clause in place, that the community would not stand for public works just coming in and doing what they would with that curving. And I also don't think that the second this is passed, the public works is going to show us sledgehammers to destroy the curve. So in the spirit of actually having, receive protections, I think that it does make sense, much as I don't like it. But I don't think that we would be able to move forward, and I think we have all been working on this for 6 years. This was one of the very first agenda items in one of my very first hearings. Ooh, what am I getting myself into here? And here we are 6 years later, and we want to see this passed. But I really do think that people would rally around that, and people would be made aware if Public Works were to propose anything that put it in jeopardy. I agree with Ms. Galt's comment about not understanding why the Parks Department would not want the honor of having this designated a landmark. I keep thinking, it's a very different animal. I do keep thinking of Will Rogers State Park, which is an actively used equestrian facility, and that is a very historic park, and horses are boarded in there, and the arenas are used, and the polo fields are used, and it is lived in and protected, and I don't see any reason that Rockingham should not be the same. And I feel that this is such a worthwhile information that so well delineates how all of the features contribute to just a sense of place and time. And the comment about that Rockingham contains all of the same part of history is so appropriate. So I do feel that resolution, even though my preference is resolution number 2, I do feel that resolution number 1 is probably what we would have to do to get all of this protected. And I think in the spirit of that, and the fact that it is in the county and that it is in the boundaries, I think that would end up working in favor of that. That's and that's our folks. And
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I think all commissioners have spoke except for myself, so I'll dive in here. The nomination of Rockingham Park for a historic landmark has been a very long process, as we know, starting since 2017. Today, the County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will be voting on this nomination. It's been a long process. Whatever the outcome today, I really want to thank Francis Galt for originally bringing this nomination for HLAC and doing the historic background of Rockingham. I also want to thank the former chairs, Howard Wichtosh and Commissioner Nye, that put a lot of work on this nomination over the years. It's a long process. And the subcommittees. And there's been 2 or 3 subcommittees, and probably everyone on here pretty much been on the subcommittees at one time or another. I'm afraid I'll miss names if I try to name them all, but I want to thank everybody that's been on the subcommittees. And the public, I mean, they've been sticking with us since the very beginning, advocating for this nomination, coming before us over the years, writing multiple letters. I can't tell you how many, but there's multiple letters. As we all know, we are inbox. and showing up to the meetings over the years. I mean, to come out and really support a nomination for Rockland Park. And unfortunately, one of them, Kelly Forrest, is an ardent supporter, unfortunately, is not here. And so it just tells you how long this has been going on. And so I support the designation of Rocky Neck Park as a historic landmark, and I support draft resolution number 1 with amendments. For the first time in our long discussion of this nomination has the support of the County Public Works. We have a letter submitted by Chris Nedley, Deputy Director of Transportation, and that is if we include the wording that's in resolution number 1. The stone curbing along Mission Canyon Road is still in the proposed resolution. If road work on Mission Canyon Road is done in the future, and if the stone curbing is involved, County Public Works will still need to have public meetings to address this issue, since it will be part of a historic landmark. So I feel that, as been supported by fellow commissioners here, that if it's not going to be a done deal, they're going to have lots of meetings, and the public, I'm sure, will come out if stone curbing is threatened by some kind of a road improvement. I'm afraid that without the support of County Public Works, the proposed nomination act will not pass the County Board of Supervisors. And as a result, we will not have Rocky Neck Park as a historic landmark. I'm willing to compromise to make Rocky Neck Park a historic landmark. Now about the County Public Parks Department. 2 different subcommittees have worked with the County Parks Department to get their support for this nomination. The current nomination has been changed to help satisfy the Parks Department concerns. The County Parks Department still does not support this nomination, even though we did do changes to the nominations to try to get their support. In general, they say they have enough regulations and procedures to maintain the park. They do not want to have to go through HLAC if there's anything major done. I understand their concerns, and they have been very open to discuss with us. It's not like there's not been an open dialogue. It's just we just cannot get them to support it. Any change is difficult, I understand that, and the current resolution does not infringe on the daily operations that they currently are doing at Rocky Neck Park. So, and during our last subcommittee, the very last Zoom subcommittee with the Parks Department and County Public Works, County Parks Department asked a very important question. And I tried to answer it on Zoom, but on a Zoom meeting to try to answer it. And the question was, why Rocky Neck Park? All of our county parks are historic. So why this one? Well, to me, that's a great question. And yes, some of our county parks are eligible and probably should be designated historic landmarks. But Rocky Neck Park is especially a worthy candidate. And I think the big thing about Rocky Neck Park right now is its location. This park is in the original natural state next to the Santa Barbara Mission, the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. It's the entrance to Mission Canyon and next to urban Santa Barbara. This is one that Santa Barbarians can walk to, bike to. There's public transportation that goes up to the Mission that gets people there. And, we've got to look at what's going on down in the future. As we all know, California and Santa Barbara is having a housing crisis. To solve the problem, density is going to happen to create more housing. New housing projects in the core of Santa Barbara are almost all going through the system, or almost all 4 stories now. What will Santa Barbara look like in 100 years? We don't know for sure, but it's obvious that parks and open space will be needed to residents living in the higher density buildings. And having a rural type park next to a city is such a plus for the residents going down the road. County Parks Department says that Rocky Neck Park will stay the same. How do we know that? Unless we have it designated as a historic landmark. There's a city park in Santa Barbara called Plaza de la Cruz. You probably know it, you've driven by it. It was created as a city park in 1855, over 100 years ago. It's located between East Haley and East Code Street. If you drive by this park today, it is now fenced off and used by a private company for trapeze classes. I'm certain that is not what envisioned for this park when it was established in 1855. Rocky Neck Park Could also change in 100 years if we do not protect it with historic landmark status. We don't know what could happen, but at least having historic landmark status, there's a process that if there's changes, it has to go through a historic review. So in conclusion, I support proposed resolution number 1. And I do support the following amendments: the S, the removing of page 4, and removing the word legal description. So those are my comments. And so we've had our comments. So I guess we'll go to, someone wants to do to vote on resolution number 1, or to do a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
What I can say is this discussion up here shows that we care about what we do. Obviously, we wouldn't be showing up if we didn't care about what we do. But we also have to be practical. I think we don't live in a perfect world. And even with our landmarks, I gotta point out, we let people change their kitchens and their bathrooms. And to some extent, roads are a little bit like that. So, but I agree wholeheartedly that any action that Public Works might take in that road is going to be subject to intense review by our residents. So I would move that the Santa Barbara County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission adopt a resolution designating Rocky Nook Park as a Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark. And this would be resolution number 1. With revisions that omit and legal description, and with flows written as it is in the plural, and the omission of page 4. Did I drop anything from that list?
Oh, yeah. No, that's it.
Okay, and determine that the above action is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to section 15308 of the state CEQA guidelines.
Do we have a second to this?
Ron or Howard, could you both report on this? Do you want to second it? No, I'll go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Snow seconds it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call. Comments, go ahead.
Okay. If we pass this number 1 resolution, we are not being intellectually honest. The whole reason why we have this resolution in front of us is that curbing. Now, I'm all for landmarking Rocky Nook Park. It deserves it and it should do it. However, why is this here right now? It's because of that stone curbing. We're trying to save that. And if we leave that clause in to empower public utilities, whatever they're called, parks or whatever, to remove that stone curbing, then that uproar that you're referring to when in the future after we pass this, oh, something happens, there's still gonna be a public uproar. The public has uproared already. That's why we have this resolution, because of that stone curbing. Now, if we want to pass this with resolution number 1, say, okay, we did it, we passed Rocky Nook Park and it's our landmark now, yay. Well, what does that do? It still empowers them to remove that stone curbing or to alter it or do whatever they want. Sure, yeah, the public will still be upset about it, but you know what? This just gives them another step to say, okay, well, Landmark Commission didn't see that they put that clause in for us, so we can do it. You know, they gave us such ammunition, so it's a landmark, but we're empowered to move this if we want to, and we're gonna do it, and they will do it if we leave that clause in there. We don't need their support to do this. We do resolution number 2, bring it to the Board of Supervisors. If they want to make their case about it, they will, and if they win, so be it. But what we're doing is bowing to them right now and saying, hey, okay, you know what? we'll save this for the future, which is great. We want Rocky Nook Park as a landmark for the future. But what about the present? This is, the stone curbing is why we're looking at this right now today.
Thank you. Any other comments before we vote? Commissioner Latosh?
I have similar sentiments. My sentiments are more rooted in language. When I read the little paragraph number 5. D5. So D says the following features of Rocky Nook Park identified on the accompanying site plan are not subject to the foregoing conditions of paragraph 2A and 2B. A, B, C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. This is not subject to the foregoing. Elements adjacent to or along Mission Canyon Road corridor that are impacted by maintenance, capital improvement, or safety projects. The way I read the language, the stone curb is not, is an element that is not subject to the foregoing. The foregoing, if you read paragraphs 2A and 2B, say that except as set forth. Number B, except as set forth. No alterations, repairs, required. So I don't trust the process that leaves it open to discussion on part of the Public Works Department, who has no empathy, no sympathy at all for preservation. Parks Department already is reluctant. So I am probably not going to support resolution 1 because of my doubting mind, my suspicious mind, my lack of trust in the process. Public Works will do what it wants to do. And unless we have a tooth and a nail in this resolution that says you can do anything you want, but the stone curb is not exempt. It is part of the designation of the park. It is a piece of the park. So I understand the politics of all the work and all the goodwill that's gone forth and working with everybody and adding the sentence so that Public Works will support this project. But in my gut, I would like to send resolution 2 to the Board of Supervisors and to see where they are. If they have a problem because Public Works has a problem and because Parks has a problem, then they will do what they have to do. But they will understand from us that we want the stone curb to be considered part of the park. And however that plays out with the city and all their opinions and so forth, is what it is. I think if we yield on this, that we will have a highway.
Thank you. I actually, you have helped me change my mind. I think I will be supporting resolution 2 because of what you said. And may culpa to me from my legal background and all that I did not notice that that was a gap large enough to drive a bulldozer through. So I'll be changing it.
Mr. Chair, I call the question. Let's go ahead and let's have a vote here. Commissioner, for resolution number 1 with the amendments as. So we'll start down below. Commissioner.
This is version 1.
Version 1.
I vote no.
Commissioner Wickosh.
Version 1? No.
Yes. Commissioner Knight.
Yes, on version 1.
Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Commissioner Bleacher.
Yes.
Commissioner Kaufman Gray, yes. Commissioner Smith?
No.
And Commissioner Miller?
No.
So what, is it a tie?
It failed because there's not 5 votes.
Not by votes, okay. So the resolution number 1 failed to pass. So we'll move on to resolution number 2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do we need 5 votes to pass it? We have quorum, but do we need 5 votes to pass it?
We need a majority. It's a tie.
Okay. Um,
Oh, we have 4 tie.
Yes.
Question.
Go ahead.
Question about the town. If the resolution were to, I don't know if we've ever had this happen, the resolution is forwarded, the nomination is forwarded to the county board of supervisors, and they don't approve it. Is it dead in the water, or do we have an opportunity to? So we then couldn't resubmit another nomination?
Right, that's, yeah, it cannot come back once it's defeated. And, yeah, that's why we were doing these 2 different ones, to try to get a compromise that we might get their support, but if without, we don't know, they might support.
So, let me ask, so we're stalemate here.
Well, no, we have another resolution to vote on, which is taking out the wording that is supported by Public Works. And then, of course, if that's defeated, then the Historic Landmarks has not supported a nomination, and we'll be finished with this.
So I'm imagining resolution 2 going to the board of supervisors. I'm imagining 150 people in the board of supervisors hearing who are going to be upset if they don't approve the landmarking of Rocky Neck Park. There is an unknown at the time that the board of supervisors look at this. And if the board of supervisors will be controlled or governed by 2 departments and the staff of the 2 departments into denying this project forever, or listening to the voices of 150 people, whoever shows up, they might be persuaded. It's a toss-up.
Well, that's the unknown, and, we're here just to vote on these nominations, and, the choices were given today. We just had a vote. It did not carry. So we're going to move on to a second resolution. I guess if the second one is denied, is there a county council? Is there a way that it could still be reworked and brought back if we deny the second one, or is this a done deal? Because I would thinking the way we're voting on it, if there's a majority that says no, we pretty much should vote down and start that one.
Let me check the bylaws really quick, because I think there's something about it needs to have something new.
Okay,
Just-
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Well, council's doing that. I don't know that the board necessarily has to consider this. They may or may not bring this up in the 90 days, within which time our landmarking is viable. And the board has denied very specifically the previous landmark thing that the commission has done. If you remember, I think it's the Francis Ridge Canal. The first time that went up to the board, they did deny it. And it was only the second time around that we managed to get them to adopt that. So it is a very strong reality. So you don't necessarily have this room packed with 150 people. It it could be essentially a pocket veto. We have an administrative situation where we have different departments telling us that they don't support this. Why would we embarrass the county to show that we are not supporting this by having this hearing room open to members of the public? So I think that's a little simplistic to believe that simply members of the public will be able to pressure the board into doing that. It hasn't happened over these 5 years. Because obviously, there's been a lot of support in these intervening 5 years for getting the park landmark. So that's why some people might see my position as extreme, but I think it's just simply practical. I'm not going to fall on my sword for a stone curb. And I think we're not here just because of that stone curb.
Mr. Chair. I think it would be enlightening to go ahead and have the next vote on the alternative resolution, because some of us may have changed our minds. I, for one, would rather see something leave that's passed, even if it's not my first choice, than to have nothing. Resolved.
Well, that's, yeah. Did you find something?
So what I was thinking of is a little different. The bylaws say renewed nominations of the same property that was previously deemed inadequate by the commission must contain new information. So that's a different point. So I think you probably could come back at some point.
If we voted,
I don't see a
Yeah.
prohibition.
if two votes down, there's still a chance we could bring it back later. If we pass it, it automatically will go directly to the supervisors within 90 days. Or they have 90 days to act. I guess I need to word that correctly.
And
Okay.
if they don't, then it comes back and we can put them in one in that.
I understand it dies, if they don't act on it within 90 days.
Well, we've already been defined one, so, correct? Mr. Dunn? This went through and it didn't go, I mean, we had the resolution and we submitted it to the board, because this was before I joined the commission. Did we submit something to the board of supervisors originally and then they declined and then it came back to us? Or is this the first time ever that it's going to the board of supervisors?
We haven't got to the point of actually adopting a resolution. We actually voted to adopt the resolution, but we didn't vote on one and we didn't get to that. So, it hasn't been to the board before. This is fresh. And in terms of Ms. Ryerson's specific reference in the bylaws, that would, if we left here today and it was totally voted down, then we could not deal with it unless we had new information. But we're still voting on it here today. And we could also leave here today and say, well, we're going to continue it to another, and then we wouldn't have had a final vote, as it were, so that we could bring it back up, I would think, and vote on it. So there's play here certainly still in terms of what we would do.
Okay, well, we're up to resolution number 2. If there's someone that wants to do a, go ahead and nominate that. If not, we're done, right? Is someone wants to nominate resolution number 2 to come up for a vote?
I nominate resolution number 2 with all the edits and revisions that were previously discussed. The removal of page 4, whatever they are.
Okay. And do we have a second for that?
Mr. Chair, point of clarification, the languages that we would adopt resolution number 2.
The language is that we would adopt resolution number 2.
And also with the CEQA qualification.
Yes.
Do we have a second to bring this up? I'll do it. Okay. Welcome. I seconded it, so let's open up for discussion. Resolution number 2, discussions on this?
Okay, if I may,
Go ahead.
we're here to advise the Board of Supervisors. We are here to preserve history and how we think and define, we supervisors put us on this commission. Well, a lot of them don't personally know us, but they have to trust us and our judgment. So with all the information we got and with what we're pretty much supposed to do is to save history, save the county's history, their landmarks, the valuable historical resources. Sure, this is one of them, definitely, and I think we all agree there. So I don't know why we're so afraid of another agency not supporting us. We gotta do the right thing, support it in the way we think is the best way to support the historic resource of the county. So whatever public works things, sure, we want this, yeah, of course, but if they get to the Board of Supervisors and say, hey, this is not what we want, well, the landmarks say, hey, Landmarks Commission says, hey, this is a historic resource important to the county. This is our interpretation of it. You know what, if it loses, it sucks, it loses for historic integrity of the county, but the thing is, let's put this to a vote. Let's advise the Board of Supervisors on what we're supposed to do and go from there.
Thank you. Commissioner Duncan?
Mr. Chair, I understand your position, but some people might say that's grandstanding up here. And there is a difficulty in that when the designation goes to the board, you will be putting whoever is representing the HLAC in a somewhat difficult position because they've been in negotiations with Public Works. And the Public Works gave them this specific language and spent a lot of time and bothered to write a letter to show that they would be in this position. So I do want to say that you put the chair who typically would defend our landmarking designation before the Board of Supervisors in a somewhat difficult position. And although that argument that you just made here may sound good before us, it's not going to sound very good before the Board of Supervisors because we're part of a team. And unfortunately, that sounds like the players in the team are having an argument when they had a chance to resolve their issues and haven't done so. That it doesn't make us look good. And that is in fact why, even though we worked so hard on this previously and felt we were right at the point of sending it to the Board of Supervisors, we did. Because we knew it would be dead in the water when it got there. Now things have changed a little bit now. Now we don't have the city's project actively working. So we don't have the county and the city working together so actively on changing the bridge, etc. So maybe there's a chance that number 2 would fly as it is, or maybe before the Board of Supervisors, Public Works will simply say, you guys have to put this in, support it. And so that may be just what happens at the Board of Supervisors. In which case, we will look a little extreme, but I guess it will look like we were trying to do the best we could. So having pointed out that I'm perfectly willing to compromise, I'm perfectly willing to compromise now for voting number 2. Because certainly I would want a landmark designation coming out of this body. But I just would point out it's going to be a little tricky at the board. And we'll see what happens there because you do have the Parks Department, of course, not supporting it. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
I am going through the tortures on this because, and I feel like I'll be very wishy-washy, but I mean, I think that Mr. Knight and I both were, you know, we really want the second resolution, but you have both the Commissioner Nye, Commissioner Duncan, and your wonderful, you know, Cotton Gray. So in the interest of trying to get this, I will change my motion to an aye on one. Embarrassing. It's so wishy-washy, but I do respect what you say, and what I said earlier, I really want something to be passed and get this landmark. But this is a gigantic hole, but I don't want this resolution to fail at the Board of Supervisors and not be able to get the park designated.
Council, I don't believe we can change the vote, can we? Or-
I'm actually looking, I think, I think if you could have a motion to reconsider.
Okay. So can we have a motion to reconsider?
Question, clarification on
Yes.
Commissioner Duncan's remarks. We could send them number 2 and then up with number 1. They can put that language in. So
Sure. No, good. We have, we are considering,
They could, but who would give them that language to put it in? And
What might happen, Mr. Chair, I think more likely is, see, I'm concerned that simply the Parks Department and Public Works will simply tell them, we don't support this, and it may never come up. There may not even be a majority of the board that want to put it on the agenda. They don't have to put it on their agenda. So there's no guarantee that that open platform, that open discussion will occur. So, yeah, they would have that option, but, you know, Public Works would be just as happy not to have it a landmark at all. They don't have to argue with us what that is. But the trick is now in terms of procedure, we are actually looking at number 2. I believe there's a motion on the table for number 2, and there is a second for number 2, right?
Right.
Okay, and we were in discussion. So, are we committed then to vote on that? What's the situation?
That's the
okay, if
recommendation.
we vote, say we have to vote on number 2. If it votes down, we're voting, can we reconsider 1 again? Since the commissioner said they wanted to change their vote on 1.
You can have a motion to reconsider, and then if that passes, then you can have a new vote on number 1.
But we still have to vote on number 2 because it's on the floor right now. So we're doing discussion for number 2 right now. So the way I understand it from county council is if number 2 gets defeated, we can have a motion to resubmit number 1 and vote on that a second time. Okay, so.
That's a yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a vote, let's move to the vote.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, let's light it on first here. Please go first, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, rather than phrasing this as a breakdown in teamwork, or that somehow we're trying to embarrass Public Works and Parks Department, I would prefer a rhetoric, the narrative to be that we simply have a difference of opinion. That's allowed. This is a democracy, is it not? And we are, as a commission, we have the right to advise, to take positions on matters, and to advance those positions. Now, if people want to disagree, They have that right. The Board of Supervisors has that right. This is a dignified process. This is not a scrambling around in the back rooms and pulling strings and manipulating stuff. This is an honest disagreement. And I prefer to honestly disagree than to be hypocritical. So I'm gonna stick with my support of resolution 2 and argue the case that if the Board of Supervisors decides not to bring it forward, I can't control that. But at least we will go forward without a duplicitous or hypocritical position. We really want the whole thing to be designated Rocky Nook Park and let the others work around that. Now, if we have to introduce language subsequently, let's look at that. But let's go out the door today with a resolution that is what we really feel and what we really want for the county, for the people that have pushed for this for 5 years, the residents who live up there. That's where I'm coming from. It's the team is not just the in-house staff and our little commissions and so forth and the board. The team is all those people out there who want this for their community. They have to be included.
Yes, I'm glad you went first. I'll concur with all those words. And also just to the point of, well, if the supervisors voted down or pocket veto this or something, sure, we can bring it back to them in a later date. You know, the Rocky Nook Park will not be dead as far as trying to landmark it. You know, if we change the language in the resolution or not the resolution, but the nomination, yeah, we can bring it back to them whenever we want. If they get frustrated with us and fire us, well, I don't think it'll go that far. However, why would we think we cannot bring it back if they vote it down? You know, it's something in the future. Rocky Nook Park is not in danger as of this moment or even this year, I would think, of being altered in any crazy way. Okay, yeah, sure, we want to save it for a future, maybe 20 years from now, it might be in danger. That's why we want to landmark it now than later. However, right now, we have some time to think about it if we wanted to. And, maybe if the Board of Supervisors says no this year, next year we'll bring it back, or the year after, or 5 years from now. We have some time overall. But okay, I'll leave it at that.
We have a motion on the table. Let's do a roll call vote. We'll start with Commissioner Knight. This is resolution number 2.
Yes.
Ritosh.
Yes.
Commissioner Knight.
Reluctantly, yes, I prefer the other resolution, but I want to see something move out of this commission.
Reluctantly, yes. Commissioner Fleischer.
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Hoffman-Gray, yes.
Yes.
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay, it carries unanimously. Let's have a 10-minute break and we'll go on to our next agenda.
I print out small copies. Oh, you already got it? Okay, well, let's make it easier. Very pretty, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and after all these years, You have all that?
Thank you, guys. Oh, I hope so too. No, I'm not the only one. Yeah.
Oh, no, thanks, I'm good. Good idea to bring snacks though. Wow.
Yeah, no. Georgia. Oh, she was on the. I'll take positions.
Oh.
Oh, it's just. I have a feeling that's what that means. You know, that is- it's like you already have a snack.
What is it? Wow. I would definitely. Thank you, Mr. I know, thank you. I'll take my crew, but not my. Oh, yeah. I love the trees, because all the leaves fall off, and it's just, it's like a, looks like a ornament. 30%. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Thank you. Well, no, yes, it is very. And now.
A planner, like, take this to more ceremonies, and write a letter and all that.
Yeah, Marshall Travis.
And I could give a sample of lots of stuff, it's not like, hearing support wasn't the one doing it, it's always like, see the planner.
The planner would do it?
Yeah. But we do have to put together the final resolution.
I did get a voicemail from General Services that real properties is assisting you with taking description of the parcels.
Oh, good.
So we should have that this week. Hopefully.
Oh, good, okay. I didn't know they would have that ability.
Yeah, I was contacting Alex in the surveyor's office. It was on the other place. They didn't have everything that we needed for the description, just.
Yeah.
Hopefully when I get back to my desk. General Services.
Oh, good.
And like this. It's just that perhaps.
You know, I thought on the topic of.
Wow.
Because it's active.
So what's the finalizing to get Keith to sign it? The resolution. Once the resolution is finalized, we'll change it to what they have to sign it.
Yeah. And I believe that will go to the board of supervisors.
Yes. Do you want me to make the changes? No. Because they just made a couple little changes.
To the resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have them, yeah, you got it. Yeah, would you mind sending me those?
Okay.
There's so many comments.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we turn this around?
I'm not sure how that's going. I don't know if they added it. Yeah, I still want to.
Yeah. Maybe better for the speaker.
Makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Was wondering.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
Street alterations. The County Historic Landmark Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on the proposal to allow for the replacement of non-historic vehicular gates and the addition of a new pedestrian gate and delivery box, a new 150 square foot bike storage and accessory structure, a new pool courtyard, and reflecting pool, as well as associated landscape renovations. A new sculpture garden landscape feature and associated grading at 2845 Sycamore Canyon Road. The parcel will be served by the Montecito Water District, the Montecito Sanitary District, and the Montecito Fire Protection District. This property is a 10.64 acre parcel, zone 5D1, and shown as a census parcel number 009-021-069, located at 2845 Sycamore Canyon. It's in the first Victoria district. Do we have any ex parte from any of the commissioners on this project today? Okay, seeing none, we can move on and do the report, I guess the introduction or staff report on this.
Yeah.
Who would like to go first?
Yeah, okay, great, sorry. Well, I wasn't sure, so what's the best way to do this?
I think.
I can run a plan sets that.
Okay.
The planner may be, online there.
Hi, Veronica, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here. I'm available for questions, but that was a good project overview, and I'll let Anthony take it away.
And we do have the planner demo in our chat.
Oh, yeah, were they drawings?
Yeah, I passed them out.
Okay, great. So, so I guess, sorry, I'm stuck between paper and digital here. So maybe, yeah, we can just pull up, we'll go through the plan sets and then, yeah, we'll say that I can do the historic report. Okay, well, thank you, Anthony Grumbine with Harrison Design. And I'll just walk you through our the overall project and set. So if you look at, if you can zoom in on the site plan there, we'll start at the, there we go, perfect. We'll start at the bottom actually. The two dashed areas. So this project has as you've seen it before, it was a house was being restored, a lot of components removed that were added later, and that project is going great, it's moved along. And now we wanted to bring to you a couple of small little piece projects throughout the property that are helping kind of stitch together and finish it off. The owners are really wonderful stewards. It's a great project to be on, and they're very sensitive to all of the historic George Washington Smith and B. Hanson features and parts of this project. So that's been part of avoiding messing the good stuff up and just kind of helping the property along. So the area that you see on the right hand side of this dash is a garden, and we'll go into the details in a minute. A terraced garden down from the house to connect to the pool. The pool is directly below, it's not in the dashed area, it's in that sort of oblong shape just below the L of the dash area. Is from the late 80s, and then the pool house, which is right below it, is from the 90s. So those aren't in the scope, but just so you know, those aren't historic. But we are trying to connect it to that piece. And then to the left is in the dashed area is the sculpture garden. That's on the left dash. And then if you go up, scroll up towards the top of the property, yeah, perfect. There's two more little pieces here that are being pointed out with the arrows. The upper one is the new gates to replace non-historic gates. There's two gates right there, and we'll see those. And then the little box right below it that is also being pointed out, it's just a little bike storage shed, and it's actually too small to normally come before you all, but it's just part of the submission. So you'll see that as well. So if we go now to the next page, page H 8.4. There we go. Okay, perfect. So the top there, we have the two different gates. The designs are based on George Washington Smith's wooden doors in the garage and some other gates around the property. So we played off of that. They're not exactly the same design, they're a little different, but they're sort of like making a nod to them while still being different. And the piers as well, as you see those two plaster piers, those are a play off of the piers that are on the inside the courtyard that are a little more fancy. And so, but we're sort of making them the simpler brother. So, and then we are putting a wood fence above this existing stone wall there. And then the gate on the left is a simpler, even still simpler wooden gate. You can scroll down to the bottom left of that and you can zoom into those pictures there. That's the existing gate. It's really, it's actually failing and probably 30 years old. It's a rolling gate. And with it's not the prettiest, and it's also, yeah, it's poorly done and it's already failing, which is always one of the interesting, fun things to see how the new stuff actually usually fails before the old stuff. The 100-year-old main gate is still around, and the side gates that were only 20, 30 years old are already failed. All right, so then on to H 8.401, which is the next page. This is a little bike storage. And if you zoom into that picture, it's going to be, we're just trying to make it extremely minimal and just look like another gate in the wall. So that arrow is showing where it would be on the wall. And then if you scroll down, you can see that it's two simple wooden gates, and we're hiding the roof and the little structure behind below the level of the wall. So from the courtyard, you'll never know that there's a little storage shed there on the other side of the wall. We're just making it very simple, stainless steel and copper roof to be very low profile and plaster. So very understated. And so that's it for that. And then we can just flip through the number of civil plans for the garden areas. We can go on to L001. So there's a landscape, 2 areas to go through a little further. Yeah.
Sorry, just take it.
No problem. Yeah.
Was that L1?
Yeah, that works. We can do that. We can go L100. Yeah. Okay. So perfect. This is the terrace from the house. You see on the left above the terrace is the connector to the house and the steps that are existing to remain. They're historic. And so this is just taking a series of levels to change down to the pool level. Right now, there's just a bunch of lawn there. This is also part of the water-wise, trying to get you more water-wise. And so making these gravel terraces that step down. And then we looked at the existing treads and low walls around the property, and we're working off of that language as well. And then, so we can go to the next page, L100A. And then this is the sculpture garden. There exists 2 sculptures, and we're going to do a third to make this this backdrop and then this terracing down and stepping down of this area. And then also we'll be changing some grass out. This is all grass right now, but we'll be changing some of it out to gravel. And then if you go to L300, which is the next page, there we go. There you can see the terraces and section, how it will work down from the house on the right, stepping down to the pool level. And then the next page, L301. Scroll through these next drawings. They're just basically sections and elevations showing how it all plays out. And then there's water calcs on the later pages. Yeah, you can keep going. And the plants there, playing in the palette that is similar to the palette of the rest of the house. Rest of the gardens, I should say. And then yeah, keep going down. And then the last one, I think really is the renderings at the end, our last 2 pages are L700. To just kind of show what that looks like in perspective. There we go. It's kind of stepping down formal, similar to this, appropriate to this period and mostly Italian influence. And then the last one is the sculpture garden there. So yeah, so that covers, and then I think, you want to bring up the historian's report?
Good afternoon, I'm Tim Hazeltine from Post Hazeltine Associates. On the proposed report, Dr. Post is the senior author, is present to the left. Anthony gave a very good overview of the project. I'll summarize our report. First, if we could go to map number 3, that would be page 4. That would just give us a one more page. I'm sorry. There we go. So look at that. If you look at big map 3, you'll see the old photograph, and it has little boxes pointing to where all these improvements will be located. So see that. The main form, and of course, this is an Italian Renaissance revival style house designed by George Washington Smith, with gardens by A.E. Hansen. The primary formal gardens are up off of, let's just say, the top of the photo. So if you see where it says gates, that direction is one vista of the formal gardens designed by E.E. Hansen. The other are a series of terraces that are parallel to the house on the left side of the house. And then to the lower end, where you see the blue swimming pool, that really is where the 2 alterations will take place. If you look at, I think it's page 13 of the PDF, page 12 of the report, I believe. There's a copy of the A.E. Hansen design, or one of the sketches that he did. If you go back down, sorry, there you go. Okay, so this shows how we conceptualize the gardens. Much of this was constructed or installed. There was, I think, an effort, or at least there was an idea, where the existing pool and cabana, which are less than 50 years of age, are located. There would be a folly or some sort of feature there that was not built. Of course, subsequently, within the last 50 years, less than 50 years, the existing swimming pool and its cabana building were constructed in a sort of loose interpretation of the Italian Renaissance style. The focus of the project is to sort of knit the swimming pool and cabana into very kind of forceful features off the south side of the building into the landscape, into the house. Currently, you could exit that side of the house and walk down. There's a sort of set of steps that go almost nowhere. There's more lawn, there's a swimming pool, and then there's the cabana. So the inspiration is to link these features to the house in a way that's similar and complementary to the historic Italian style gardens. You can see the this image. Pam and I support the changes because we believe they meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. The installation of the terraces, which are designed to emulate the Italian Renaissance style. So there's composed of a series of low terraces and steps in a similar but less elaborate pattern as the historic terraces to the rear of the house. Their installation will not remove any historic landscape features in the area, as there are none at the moment. And that area was somewhat altered when they installed the swimming pool and cabana. The design and materials of the terraces are complementary to the house. They're not introducing materials, design features, or elements that are out of character with the Italian Renaissance revival style. The other element is a sculpture garden, which is sheet, I think an architectural sheet, L100A, I believe. And this feature is really inspired by very similar garden features found in Italy between the, say, the middle of the 15th century into the early 18th century. These were usually designed as a series of terraces, embellished with hedges or sculptures. And they basically truly function as just a decorative element. And that's what the applicant is proposing. They're going to relocate 2 sculptures that exist on the property to this sculpture garden. These are, say, classical style, but they're not part of the original garden. They were added by a later owner, so they're not part of the original A.E. Hansen design. So relocating them will not remove something from where it should be. The planting palette is Mediterranean in inspiration, so that's copacetic with the existing gardens and the overall palette that A.E. Hansen proposed. We support the amphitheater, kind of looks like one, but it's not. The sculpture garden, because it's a design feature that's found in gardens of the Italian Renaissance era, but they're also found in Montecito and a number of estates that were designed between the late teens and the early 1930s. I think Pierenhurst has one. There's a couple of others. And they're basically just they're decorative features. The location of the sculpture garden is not one, where it's located, it was not a historic design feature. There was some turf and some shrubbery and trees. Most of all of the trees, all the trees that are there are not part of the historic landscape. The ones that are in immediate setting are more recent. And there's actually very little right now there as well. And so we concluded that the garden landscape alterations meet the Secretary of the Interior standards because they're complementary in design. Their scale and massing is subservient to historic gardens in the house, and their installation will not remove historic design features that contribute to the significance of the house or the Hansen landscape. The bicycle shed is a very minor structure. As Anthony noted, it's going to be hidden. You will not be able to see it from the courtyard of the Marty Court, and it's tucked down below the wall. Such a minor structure, we didn't feel that impacting the historic hardscape features in that part of the landscape. The new gates, basically the replacement gates of non-historic gates, and what we know as non-historic gate piers. And the replacements are, as Anthony noted, are sort of a simplified version of the formal gate piers entrance to the main entrance to the main motor court. And so we feel that's an appropriate strategy because they're a simplified version of the originals, so they're contextual without copying exactly the existing historic gates, main entrance gates. So in conclusion, we believe the project meets the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation.
Okay, do you have any questions? Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Chair. Obviously, this is great interest to me.
I thought it might be.
One aspect I wondered about is the sculpture garden. And you say that the sculptures proposed to be moved are not part of the original design by Hansen. However, I do have this book, okay, which really very clearly covers this, and it's got great pictures by Raymond Hall from 1978, and introduction by David, edited by Gebhardt, and an introduction by him. And I can't help but notice the actual captions to all the pictures showing the Johnson Garden are clearly written by Hansen himself. And they are very admiring of these sculptures that have been placed there by the Donahues during their period. Although their original source evidently came from Mrs. Donahue's mother, Mrs. Dan Murphy's garden in Los Angeles.
Exactly, they've traveled several times.
Okay, so when you look at what Hansen says about the sculptures in the garden, he's obviously admiring them and feeling they're a positive addition to his garden. And I'm wondering about the part of the Secretary of the Interior standards, which speaks to additions or alterations which become historic in their own right, and whether that might apply to some of these.
We did not think so. In the original report, we defined the period of significance, and for the garden is A.E. Hanson's design, and while he found them admirable, that doesn't necessarily give them historic significance. I think it's his design that's the most critical part, and that's also Pam's opinion. So generally, if it's something that postdates the period of significance, its relocation would not impair integrity for the period of significance.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, if I could just throw one more thing in, just for location, and maybe we can go to this, that actually the site plan, either the site plan or the A.E. Hanson. There we go. So just as general, sort of the bottom right corner, see that circle, the very, very bottom, where that kicks out. So sorry, the other bottom, yeah, down, there we go. That little circle down there. So that does exist. And then where it kicks out, that alluvial fan, since that's part of the discussion of the day.
Different item.
Different item. So as it flares out, that's where those sculptures ended up being different, and ended up being a hedge and put there. We're relocating those ones, not all the ones that were part of the original design, and also it's sort of in contrary to what A.E. Hanson's even original design was for that area. So just as a way of what we're moving, we're being very sensitive to that. It does not actually tie to this.
While you're there at the podium, I wanted to ask you about how this area is going to be used. Because when I saw the drawings and the picture that shows the inspiration, what I thought of as like the theater space in the Lotus with the terraces. So is the idea that you're actually going to display sculptures in this area? Or what it looks like to me is you've created a stage that would be used for entertainment purposes.
I think it's sort of, and the sculpture garden, the theater garden, or the Lotus Land garden of it, is sort of it ends up being, I think the family's planning on using it like a lounge space. So like going and having lunch and sitting on a stone wall and having something beautiful to look at, having sculpture, and having it as a moment as you're working your way through the garden, as sort of a place to be, and a sort of reflective space. There's definitely no plans to having theaters. There's no tickets being sold for the next show, if anything. So it's more of a a different type of space that would work well within the garden, in the similar way to how in Lotus Land, when you come out from behind the hedges and you have this aha moment, and a lot of people just naturally sit down and talk and relax because of the right height of the stone walls. That's kind of the overall garden vibe that we're going for in terms of the place. And part of the big problem is,
could we see the picture of the sculpture garden again? And could you explain to us the scale of the element? Because it's sort of hard for us to tell how big this thing is.
sure, yeah.
This looks gigantic.
Yeah, the renderings make it look very large, but it's, and I think that's just sort of the perspective. If you go to the site plan or the floor plan, yeah, L100, or there's another one that's, there we go. Okay, perfect. The renderings really do make it, the computer renderings make it look a lot bigger than it actually is. It's surrounded by, on the lower portion, by hedges, lower left, and then all the topography that you see going up, the topo lines going above it, are all basically grass, is the big grass belt. So in terms of where it's located, it's actually a small portion of the overall lawn. But it sinks down there. So it sort of was a natural terrace to tear us down and have a place to be. Because otherwise it was just basically a big giant lawn. So it was a big giant lawn this way, a big giant lawn the other way. And it wasn't designed, and so this is a way of kind of giving it some design for a natural topography of sitting down, without messing with anything historic. So, and then you can see the statues in the 1, 2, 3 statues, little squares down there at the bottom. And as you see on one of them, we've moved the hedge back, so that sort of a secret passage. So part of it's the sort of the fun and drama of like going to a place, relaxing, enjoying it, and then having a secret path out, and then you work your way backwards through the garden the other way. So that part of it was just sort of a way of using up a lot of that space with something interesting.
Can you give us a dimension across there?
Oh, yes, I can. You don't have to give me a minute. All right.
While you're doing that, I would just point out, in fact, there is a historic tradition of theater in the yard in Montecito. So it would.
It still
not
works.
be something- It would not be something that we do in our community.
It's about, the widest point is about 70 feet, and then the sculpture area is about 50.
So it's about 50 feet down there where the decomposed granite is.
Yeah, that's right. So that whole kind of piece of, swath of decomposed granite.
So can you show us once again your, the mock-ups that I think they're at the very end of it?
Yeah.
So what you're proposing to do there, it looks like, is grow this hedge as a backdrop and then cut these niches in it.
That's right, for the stacks, for the sculptures.
would go.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
And the question for you or the historian, is there anything in A.E. Hanson's work that looks like that? To me, some of this looks sort of modern.
There's not, I don't know that he did another one of these theater-esque landscape installations, but as you just noted earlier, and I've mentioned previously, these types of features are very characteristic of Italian revival gardens. And as you noted, there are a number of examples in Santa Barbara, or in Montecito, Santa Barbara County. And I think in a way, we don't want to just take an element from another one of his gardens, put it in here and say, oh, well, there's one in this LA garden, so let's put it in here because he did it before. I think, given the fact that these are located on the side of the property that actually has the least going on, that it's better not to try to copy something from another one of his designs.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, do we have any public comment?
I have no speaker slips, sir. And
So, okay.
nobody in the attendees.
Okay, no public comment. So we'll move on to comments from commissioners. Who would like to start? Mr. Becker?
Sorry to monopolize the conversation. A.E. Hanson, if you're not familiar with him, is a pretty amazing landscape architect. He got hooked up with George Washington Smith, and that's how he came to do the Johnson House. And he might be best known for Harold Lloyd's garden and the amazing things he did in Los Angeles for theater people. But then he became involved in big subdivisions later on, Rolling Hills. He went through a bunch of different stages in his life where he worked in every aspect, somewhat like Peter Rydell, but even greater. Where he'd been a nurseryman, he'd been a logger, I mean, he did it all. So that he had a really firm grasp of the work he was doing. And if you haven't read this, it's great to have him tell you basically how they created these mansions, and the sort of skills and business sense that you needed, because he had to be a salesman first of all. And he learned how to do that, and he worked for Theodore Payne, who's probably one of the most famous native California nurserymen in the early 20th century. So this is just a wonderful garden for us to look at, and it's so wonderful that it's associated with this incredible historic house that we had the chance to look at before. And so we got a chance to look at all the drawings from that too, as we looked at this project. And one of the wonderful things about the text in this, Hanson actually describes meeting Smith, walking through the house for the first time, and how he analyzed the site and immediately see what a great opportunity it is. And in fact, he pointedly says that actually we can't take any credit for what is happening here because it's inherently beautiful and it's just an incredibly natural side of great beauty. So he was thrilled that he did not have to cut down any trees. And it was just an opportunity site all the way around. So of these different elements, the one thing I am concerned about is the sculpture garden a little bit. And I would just suggest that see if in your design you can actually incorporate a little bit more informality, not so much stiffness. And that's sort of the fun thing about, for instance, the theater in Lotus Land, although there's sort of geometric, but there's also these little fun sculptures that make it looser and seem not as stiff. It makes it think you think more of, oh, I'd like to see Midsummer Night's Dream done in this theater. And one of the elements I think that looks particularly stiff are the three sculptures in these carved niches in the hedge. I really suggest you just grow your hedge and then put the sculptures on plinths as shown here, as he liked them. And also you could move them around that way, and they'd be far more flexible. And I think it made for a little bit better multi-purpose space. But other than that, I'm quite comfortable with the carefully considered revisions. Obviously, some people would be more concerned with the gate elements, since those are closer up to the public spaces. Unfortunately, this is in the service area gate area, not the main entrance. And the main entrance to this is very important. And you can just see it the way Hanson described it. It was carefully considered. He knew the dramatic effect he wanted to color, and was thrilled that he was able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners? No comments from commissioners? Commissioner Nye, do you have any? Put your brains up, yeah.
So we're on comments now?
We're on comments,
Okay.
yeah, so almost finished.
Great, is somewhere else. I certainly agree with Mr. Duncan's comments on the sculpture garden. It does look pretty stark and kind of postmodern. Granted, it is in an area that was not really treated much or evolved much beyond a grassy hill. But it is rather a stark approach, in my opinion, and which I think nonetheless can be edited and somewhat smoothed out to make it, in my opinion, a little bit more compatible with the historic portions of the existing gardens and with some of the newer changes that are being made. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vitale.
I agree with Commissioner Duncan and Commissioner Nice remarks. My comments relate to making the sculpture garden less formal. And I certainly agree that putting the statuary in front of the edge, not having precisely carved out niches to help that. Also think that removal of the side walls and allowing the terrace walls to actually disappear in the landscape or simply to just terminate without being abutted or buttressed by the side walls. I also think that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terraces is a little excessive. I would think that 3 would be sufficient, less overwhelming. And also the fact that this was originally designed as an open landscape, not intended to be formalized. That would help retain that initial inspiration, if you will. But and the fact that this is removed from the main house and the landscaping around it, and is buffered by the landscaping around it, is a good thing. But I do think that there's just too much walls and it's too much like and it's rather than a little folly in the hillside. Those are my comments. Just make it less formal, reduce the amount of stonework, and allow the terraces to disappear naturally into the landscape. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, well, I think that the applicant's doing a wonderful job here. I do have some concerns with the sculpture garden. Again, I think I piggyback on the other commissioner comments. I think maybe the sculptures, like has been mentioned, maybe if they're not covered, a little more open, would look better. I do like the idea that it's the way if you look at the graphics, it kind of blends down, and I kind of like the way it is, the edge wall, but maybe just have the sculptures a little bit different. The other features, gosh, that pool courtyard, to me, that's just an amazing addition to the property. And the gates are fine, and the way you tucked in the bike storage in the corner, you don't see it. It just blends in. I think it's wonderful. I mean, to me, it's just amazing to see property in Montecito that's not being subdivided, and we're actually enhancing on what is there. And I really admire the applicants for doing that. I mean, just amazing. But I would like to see what the other commissioners say, a little more reworking of the sculpture garden. But other than that, I'm very pleased with the rest of it. And it looks like that is all of our commissioner comments. And so that concludes our meeting today. Thank you for coming, bringing this for us. And I will conclude this meeting today for Historic Landmarks. And our next meeting date will be December 12th, 2022 in this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting. And for cooking.
Sure.
There are lots of historians here. Our two Watson.